Colorado. Tony is in Victorville, California. Tony, you're on the Larry Elder Show.
How you doing, Larry?
I'm doing well.
Larry, I listen to you, not often, but I do listen to you for the most part over the years, every now and then. And I hear you say that there's no systemic racism in the police department in the United States. And I because I don't listen to you all the time, I just wanted to ask you, do you believe that racism exists in this country at all?
Wow. Do I believe that out of 350 million people, there might be a racist? Tony, really?
No, not a racist. No, that's not what I said. Larry.
You said racism.
I said, do you believe?
Well, if there's a person who's racist, then there's racism.
Okay. Do you believe that racism or racist people are confined to a certain area?
Yeah, they all live in Kansas.
Okay, so now that we've got past that, for you,
it's just such a silly question, Tony. I mean, what's bizarre? Do you believe that racism exists in America? Yes, Tony, racism exists in America. 350 million people. There are some people who are racist. Do I believe that racism exists in America? Yes, Tony, racism exists in America. Do I believe that racism is a big enough factor to stop anybody willing to work hard and stay focused? No, I don't. What's the next question?
Okay, that's fine. That's fine, Larry. That's not what I'm talking about.
Obviously not. Obviously not. What are you talking about?
You say that racism, systemic racism doesn't exist in this country, then you just contradicted yourself. Because if racist people exist in this country, they're not confined to any particular area, then they exist in every area of this country, in every department,
kind of like COVID-19,
everywhere,
kind of like COVID-19. All right, Tony. I'm on break. Don't hang up, Tony. I want to ask you. Give me the most racist institution you can think of when we come back. Okay. Now, last hour I was speaking with Tony from Victorville, who has remained on the line as I requested. Tony, I appreciate that. Tony, I want to respond to what you said. First, I want to summarize what I think you said, and then respond to that. Then I want to get your response to my response, okay? I'm not sure how long my response might be. It might be the entire segment right here, in which case I ask you to hold over and you can respond on the other side. Here's what I believe you said, Tony. Larry, you are acknowledging that racists exist in America, yet you're saying that systemic racism does not exist in America. That seems like a contradiction. After all, there are people who are racist who are running or involved in the system, and therefore the system must have systemic racism, since you are acknowledged that there are racists who are involved in every aspect of America. Here's the problem with that logic. No doubt that there are a number of people in America who harbor attitudes about other people that could be deemed racist. The question is, what is their behavior? What do they do? There's a longtime publisher of a magazine called National Review. His name is John O'Sullivan. He's still alive. He's no longer the editor of that magazine. And this is what he said years ago, in analyzing what you said, Tony. White racism exists, but its social power is weak. The social power arrayed against it is overwhelming. End of quote. I'll give you an example. Let's just stick to sports, for example, because that's something that people know about and easy to talk about. Donald Sterling was the owner of the LA Clippers, and as you well know, his girlfriend taped him in his privacy of his own home, making all sorts of racist statements, bigoted statements about black people. They took his team away from him. Players wouldn't play for him. His coach didn't want to play for him. They took his team away. Meanwhile, in the NBA, how many times have we seen instances in which a black player has said something to a white player that was bigoted? Recently, one white player was called a punk blank white boy. Remember that? And the player who called him that apologized. The player who was the victim of the slur said he accepted the apology, and they went on. Honestly. So because somebody might have a bigoted attitude, that person can't be a good pilot? That person can't be a good teammate, can't be a good coach? And really, you really want to play this game, Tony? Because I said that there are racists in America? Poll after poll after poll has shown that Americans, whether they're black, white, Asian, or black, believe that of those four groups, blacks are more racist than the other ones. Even blacks said that. The ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, has for years tracked anti-Semitism in America, and unfortunately, the rate of anti-Semitism among blacks is 2.5 to 3 times higher than the rate of other non-black Gentiles. So you want to play this game about America is systemically racist because there are racists? Well, as a percentage, according to these polls, there are more black racists than there are white racists, as a percentage. And as a percentage of hate crime committed, blacks at 13% commit almost 13% of the hate crime. This thing on, whites at 60% commit about half the hate crime. So whites commit disproportionately less as a percentage to their population of hate crimes, blacks more. Is that the game you want to play? Now, name the CEO who's a racist. Name the Hollywood executive who's a racist. Name the team owner who's a racist. Name it. Name the college president who's a racist. Name the military leader who's a racist. Name the senator who's a racist. Name the congressperson who's a racist. You can't do it. You can't do it. Meanwhile, the Congressional Black Caucus will not distance themselves from America's most notorious anti-Semite, Louis Farrakhan. Is that relevant? No, let's just talk about white racism. Every college or university has some sort of person to ensure that the school has diversity. Every corporation does too. Why? There's something called the Office of Federal Contract Compliance. Virtually all the Fortune 500 companies do business with the federal government. Federal government has an office contract compliance guidelines that mandate racial diversity. If you don't have that, you don't get covered government contracts. So much for that institution. So where is it? Where is this systemic racism? Are there individual cops who act out because of racism? No doubt. No doubt. But the Obama administration, for example, came in and accused the Ferguson PD of institutional racism. You know why? Well, because Ferguson is 67% black, but 85% of the traffic stops are of black people. 18-point gap, ergo systemic racism, said the Obama DOJ. Really? Let's take that across the country. New York City, where most of the officers are, quote, people of color or women. 25% of the population in New York City, black. 55% of those stopped in traffic stops are black. That is a 30-point gap, bigger than the gap in Ferguson. Why isn't the NYPD institutionally racist then? And the answer is you can't determine it by looking at numbers. You have to look at behavior. And it turns out, according to the study done by the Obama administration, released in 2013 by the National Institutes of Justice, which is the research arm of the DOJ, you name the offense, whether it's speeding, whether it's driving without a license, driving without a headlight on, driving without a car seat. If you have a baby, you name the offense, a black motorist is more likely to commit it. I'm sorry. These are facts. And why we don't do these things on a case-by-case basis blows my mind. There are 50 million interactions between the police and civilians every single year. Shaquille O'Neal and Charles Barkley, are you aware of that? Are you aware that out of that number, 11 million people are arrested? Are you aware of that? Are you aware that 60,000 officers are assaulted? I don't have the breakdown as to who the assaulters are, but if you look at homicides of the 50 people that were killed last year, by percentage, 60% of those who are cops killed in the line of duty are killed by blacks. Care about that? Is that racism? Is that systemic racism? Looking for it. Meanwhile, racism has receded as a factor in American life, and Obama's election is an example of that. The man got a higher percentage of the white vote than John Kerry did. He won 52% of the vote, but by the time the man walked into office the third week of January, his approval rating had gone to 67%, almost 70%. How does that happen in a racist country? A whole bunch of people didn't vote for him, pulled for him. Otherwise, his numbers wouldn't have gone up like that before he did anything as a president. Trump's numbers didn't go up. Are you kidding me? Obama was loved on. Even people who didn't vote for him, pulled for him, wanted him to succeed. And we're talking about systemic racism? Are you kidding me? Baltimore, the mayor is black. The state attorney who brought the charges against the 6 officers is black. 3 of the 6 officers black. City council, all Democrat, majority black. The judge before whom two of them tried their cases, black, found them not guilty. The U.S. Attorney General at the time, Loretta Lynch, black. Barack Obama, black. And by the way, that woman that went off on Daniel Cameron, she was involved in the Obama police task force. Sure was. And you know what? 2 months before Freddie Gray died, that task force praised Baltimore for employing 21st century tactics. Praised them. And then Freddie Gray dies. All of a sudden, the same institution that was praised by the Obama administration now has an investigation over institutional racism. Really? Meanwhile, the welfare state is incentivizing women to marry the government and allowing men to abandon their financial moral responsibility. So more and more kids are raised without fathers, which increases crime, increases dropouts. We're not talking about that. We're not talking about the fact that 44% of Philadelphia public school teachers with school-age kids don't put their own kids in public schools. Meanwhile, they're mandating you send yours there. Republicans want to give them an out. Democrats don't. Republicans are racist. Democrats are down with the brothers. I hope that answers your question, Tony. There are individual racists, obviously. What power, what clout, what influence do they have? Virtually none. I'm Larry Elder.
Okay, no problem, Larry. There's a few things wrong with your statement, but let's just stick to one. First of all, you assume that I'm saying that only white people are racist. As we both know, we black people hate each other more than anyone else hates us. And that's evident by the crime rate, the black-on-black crime in our communities, by different individuals that will not speak out about white racism.
Tony, I hate to cut you. Tony, I hate to interrupt, but when you called me and you said, do I believe racism exists? Were you really talking about black people or were you talking about white people, Tony? Be honest.
I was talking about everybody, Larry. I'm talking about the thought process. But you didn't let me get to that. You automatically cut me off. You didn't let me get to that. It's the thought process, and let me give you an example. On your job, there are certain words, there are certain things, there are certain actions that you will not take for fear of losing your job or some kind of retaliation.
Correct.
If an officer does the things that these officers are doing, evidently they're comfortable. What makes
wait. Does these things hold on, Tony. Does these things these officers are doing? If you're talking about, for example, let's just stick to George Floyd. I don't know any cop that said that was okay. None. So you're acting like these instances are some sort of systemic representations of how the cops behave. When in fact, I don't know any cop that justifies the treatment that George Floyd got. None. Pardon me?
Can I respond?
Yes.
Can I respond? You told me you were going to let me respond. That's what you said to me. So therefore, when you talk about a situation like George Floyd, it's not that officers think that that's okay. It's that the officer that did it felt that it was okay. What made him feel
Tony, do you think a society exists where 100% of people are going to act like angels?
Environment that he's in.
You think
caused him to feel comfortable.
One more time, Tony. Tony, one more time. You're acting like Tony. One more time. I can only say it one more time. If what this officer did was something that other officers applauded, I would agree with you. We've got a systemic problem here. They do not
applaud him. They didn't stop him. It's not
for crying
that they
out loud.
applauded him, Larry. They didn't stop him. They knew this guy was what he was before he did that to George Floyd.
Tony.
And they didn't stop him.
How often does this happen? How often does this happen, Tony?
He was comfortable.
How often does this happen, Tony?
He's comfortable. He's comfortable.
Okay, Tony, I'm going to have to go. You're not answering my questions. Tony, how often does this happen?
Larry, that's not the point.
Oh, it very much is the point. It very much is the point. Tony, it very much is the point. If something rarely happens, and when it's happened, it's universally condemned, and they all say we're going to revisit tactics and make things better, it seems to me you have very little to complain about. What does happen frequently is black-on-black crime, as you pointed out. What does happen frequently is people getting shot in Chicago. It is rare for the police to kill anybody, let alone an unarmed person, let alone a white cop killing an unarmed black person, let alone a white cop killing an unarmed black person who was not reasonably perceived as a threat. So you're focusing on that and saying, how come this didn't happen? How come that didn't happen? I agree with you. There's lots of things we could say what should have happened, but it's rare. You should have perspective. Keep it in context. White racism exists, as John O'Sullivan said, but its social power is weak. The social power against it, overwhelming. When Senator Obama gave a talk before a black church, he said, the Moses generation, referring to the MLK generation, has gotten us, quote, 90% of the way there, end of quote. My generation, he said, Tony, the Joshua generation, has to get us that additional 10%. 10%. That's before he got elected president, let alone reelected. (1997), Time Magazine, CNN polled black teens, white teens. Is racism a major problem in America? Both said yes. Black teens, is racism a big problem, a minor problem, or no problem in your own daily life? 89% said minor or no problem in my own daily life. That was 1997.